may all talk about the faith and passion we have for our daily work, but what about when your daily work is centered around your faith?
God has made us all beautiful and unique and with such different gifts and talents. That's why everyone's just a little bit different. But I think because of that, we all think a little bit different, and the way we see the world is just a little bit different. And so for us and our team, it's the beauty of finding those ideas and drawing them out, bringing the idea forward and to actually change the ecosystem of healthcare, how we do things, and to see that impact is just so worth it. It's just such a gift.
That's Sister Pieta Keller, a sister of St. Francis of the Martyr St. George and an innovation engineer. And I'm Shelli Dankoff, your host for OSF HealthCare Accelerated. We appreciate you tuning in and remind you to be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Faith and innovation may seem like an unusual combination, but within the walls of OSF Innovation, it absolutely is not. OSF HealthCare was founded by the Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis in Peoria, Illinois, 147 years ago. What started as a lone two-story house that served as a hospital on the south side of Peoria has grown into a 16-hospital ministry throughout Illinois and Michigan. OSF employs nearly 24,000 mission partners, how we refer to our employees. Among the extensive offerings of services is OSF Innovation, where they hope to transform healthcare through strategic solutions designed to connect everyday needs with inventive approaches and bold advances. What may surprise some of you is how involved our sisters are in everything that goes on at OSF HealthCare, and that includes within the walls of OSF Innovation. Joining me to talk about this intersection of faith and innovation are Sister Stella, a sister of St. Francis of the Martyr St. George, serving in our ministry as a performance improvement specialist, and Sister Pieta Keller, a sister of St. Francis of the Martyr St. George, who is an innovation engineer. Those are super cool titles, and we are going to talk more about them. But first, I want to thank both of you for being with us. And I want to start with a bit of a history lesson. Hard for me to believe, but we're coming up on 10 years ago that our hospital in Alton, Illinois, which is OSF HealthCare St. Anthony Health Center, joined the OSF family. And along with that came the Sisters of St. Francis of the Martyr St. George. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the merger, and then I also want to talk about your path to joining the sisters. But let's start, Sister Pieta, with that whole merger and how that came into being.
Yeah, I think it was just a beautiful gift as a whole, because the sisters have run a beautiful, a very faith-filled ministry and been able to touch so many lives throughout Illinois and Michigan. We were a lot smaller hospital, but we've been blessed because we do work in education and healthcare. We have missions. So we have a variety of apostolates. And with that, we have a few more sisters than they do. So we're able to reach more of OSF with our presence, as evident by both of us at JUMP and at OSF Innovation. So we're able to just reach more of you and be with our mission partners in the day in and day out, which is such a gift. So 11 years ago, our mother at the time reached out to Sister Ruth Ann, and there began the conversations to have the merger happen in 2014. So, and it's just, I think, God's providence in bringing us together. And we're very similar communities in many ways. We're both German communities. We actually came from the same sisters in Germany, if you could believe it or not. So we're both breakoffs of the same community. But just seeing how God has brought us together, both our gifts and our strengths, and our weaknesses, and that weaknesses has pulled us together to be able to be with you all. And who can say they have two groups of sisters praying for their mission partners every day? It's just been a blessing.
So tell me your path to joining the sisters.
Yeah, so I actually have a degree in biomedical engineering. As I was studying at Purdue, the Lord just kind of drew me more to himself. And there was just this tug on my heart that wouldn't leave. And so I did many of the normal college things and just what do I want to do and how do I want to serve the Lord. But as I settled down and realized that he was really drawing me to himself, I entered never thinking I would use my degree again. So I entered and it wasn't even a possibility. We didn't belong to OSF. There was no, it wouldn't have gotten used. But I was like, Lord, I'm yours. This is yours. So I entered just over 10 years ago. So I entered before the merger. And through that process, Mother eventually had me sent here to OSF.
And we will talk about in a moment what you do on a daily basis, but I want to hear Sister Stella's story.
Sure. So I graduated from Benedictine College with a biochem degree, always wanting to go into healthcare. It was one of my passions. And so went to, Benedictine College and first encountered our sisters down there. One of my best friends entered our community while I was down there. And so that really struck me, and, walked with the Lord throughout the rest of those college years. And then after college, went to Central America to become a missionary, and absolutely loved it. I think, by the grace of God, if it were not for having gone down there, I wouldn't probably be wearing what I would be wearing. And it was during my time down there where there was a very beautiful picture of Our Lady that I developed a strong devotion to. And at the end of my year in the mission, came back to the States and visited our community in Alton, and they had that same exact picture hanging on the wall. And so that sign, among others, in the depths of my being, I knew without a doubt that was where the Lord was calling me. That's where I would be most alive, but more importantly, where I could serve Him the best. So after that, after a number of years, Mother sent me up here to PI, Performance Improvement. I absolutely love it. I've never been happier, if you can't tell. But yeah, it's a blessing in every way, as Sister mentioned. So
let's talk about, people hear PI, you hear those terms, performance improvement. What does that mean exactly? I know there's lots of processes involved, and usually when the PI team shows up, something's going to change for the better at the end of the day. But what does being a performance improvement specialist mean?
Right. I think maybe this is coming at it from a Franciscan point of view, but I often tell our leaders that really it's bringing wholeness and restoration to what is broken and disordered. There's a more maybe mechanical definition to it, but for me, that's how I define it, because you see these processes improved, and whether it's a division or entity, and the souls that use those processes or the patients that benefit from them, how fully alive they become. So it really, in my mind, is an invitation to restoration and healing.
An innovation engineer. I've seen some of the work that you do, Sister Pieta, and it's just amazing. But explain it to the audience, what an innovation engineer gets to do on a daily basis.
So we do a handful of things. We had a whole podcast on all our advanced imaging and modeling, how we work with to show from a patient CT or MRI to show how unique they are and to build a model of them. So we do a lot of that for surgical planning and for treatment. She works with the leaders to put a lot of their ideas into practice, but we actually work with a mission partner. So if a mission partner has an idea, I'm part of a larger team called Innovation Studio. And so we work with our mission partners when they have a need, when they're the nurse on the floor or the physician that's encountering this problem over and over and over again. We work with them when they have a need, a gap, to make that into a solution, whether it's a product, a device, an application, some kind of process. We work with them to bring that to fruition. So we get to meet them with their good ideas, with their needs, and kind of improve healthcare in that way.
Yeah, for people who aren't aware, so OSF Innovation, we encourage our mission partners, which is how we refer to our employees. If you've got an idea, if you think there's something out there that you can have, that you think would make something work differently, improve care, do whatever, give us that idea and let's work through it. Have you been surprised about some of the ideas that come your way and the work you get to work on?
Of course. It's everything from apps to launching companies to redesigning and figuring out how best to do patient implants. So there's a whole open surge now that came from our team, to just little one-offs of little devices for a newborn because nothing else fits them. So there's just those beautiful cases of just meeting them where they're at and finding the solution then.
On the PI side of things, sometimes it's not as nearly as, you don't necessarily see the device. It's a more longer term, isn't it, on some of the work you have to do? It's kind of like turning the ship. You can't just change the rudder direction. It's going to move. It's sometimes baby steps, isn't it, in your world?
Yes, you're very right. A lot of our division is heavy with methodologies, so part of what we do is to take the work of Sister Pieta and her team, which is so stunning, and create those necessary barriers for that model to then flourish, right, or to reach farther than it ever could, because the right mechanics are in place and the right processes and the right recipients of those models are ready for it.
Part of what we're discussing today is the intersection of faith and the work that you do. How does that work on a daily basis, or even longer term than that? How do those intersections come together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it makes us both very, very alive, when we can serve in that way. I know for myself, I mentioned a journey of healing and restoration. So for me, PI is a very personal passion of mine, and that stems from me knowing my own brokenness and my own healing journey, and knowing that real restoration and what is possible when you can name the brokenness and the disorderedness, whether that's in your person or that's your process, your entity, your division. So it's a very, very personal journey that the Lord has had me on, and then has placed me, I think, in a division where it asks for that which I have known. And so then you see the people just come fully alive, because what they're given is something that now is rightly ordered, and it works, and there's fruit from it, and healing, and people come alive, and so that's just the glory of God at work. So
yeah, I would also say we see people coming alive in a different way, but very much similar. For us, it's like the drawing out from within. So God has made us all like beautiful and unique, and with such different gifts and talents. That's why everyone's just a little bit different. But I think because of that, we all think a little bit different, and the way we see the world is just a little bit different. And so for us and our team, it's the beauty of like finding those ideas and drawing them out, to give them like the courage and the grace and the help to like bring the idea forward, because all of them are a little crazy to start with, or a little outlandish, or a little too much. You're just like, you're asking for what? But then to like work with them day in and day out for weeks that turn into months, that turn into years sometimes. But to work with them and to bring those ideas forward, and to actually change the ecosystem of healthcare, how we do things, and to see that impact is just so worth it, because they come alive in that way of like seeing their idea to actually solve a problem, a solution, like to bring forth something that works and that helps people. It's just such a gift.
For people who are listening and watching, if it isn't evident, there is a lot of joy around this table. Every email I ever get from Sister Pieta, seriously, it puts a smile on my face. It doesn't matter, because it just starts off with this joyous sentence every single time. So I love hearing you say the word grace, because part of what comes along with innovation and simulation is the word failure. Things are supposed to fail before they get better, and people sometimes lose sight of that. But does your joy counteract that? What brings you joy at the end of that journey with the failures that are built in, and with the things that are destined to go wrong in the process? Is that some of what brings you joy at the end of the day?
Well, and it's like the persevering through it and the grace, like at each moment. Like, yes, it's not always good. I also, one of the other things that we do is some STEAM. So we work with kids, middle school and high school. And one of my favorite things to ask them is like, I'm an engineer, I'm a Purdue grad. The rest of my team is like from the University of Illinois and other like big schools. I was like, do you think everything works the first time we build it? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, of course. You're right. Like, so it's just that like perseverance, and you learn something new each time. And oftentimes as you fail, you encounter more people. So there are more souls that get brought into it because the work needs to expand, and there's another aspect you need, or something you missed, or some division that should be included that isn't currently. So there's usually more people you reach as you fail and as you keep pressing on, and it makes the work more resilient. I think that's something that we like learned a lot during the pandemic. I've been around since before that. But it's just that that resilience that comes from it as well, that like it helps. And then when it takes off, it usually flourishes, because it now has this strength. It's not just feebly trying to move along.
And I think, too, in PI, whenever they come into a division, it's usually because something is broken. So we come in, and so you're starting with a project and a team that maybe is a little scared to have you there, maybe a little apprehensive. So what PI I think has also been incredible with and equips their mission partners with is what we call soft skills. So you have to go into those situations, those environments of mission partners that are maybe not open to you being there and fixing anything. And so those first couple months is maybe not even about fixing it. It's maybe about, hey, we're in this together. We're going to figure out what to do and how to make it better so that, one, the problem is fixed, but I think more importantly, two, they see their value, their dignity, and then the soul, the patient that uses that encounter, that process, that division, the doctor that uses, the platform, they're able to really reach the patients that they need to. And so I think it's also a division that can really equip their mission partners with those life skills. That's been so valuable for myself as well.
Let's be honest, the two of you show up and you're dressed this way, and then you have to be the bad guys, because occasionally you do.
I don't think we look very bad, but
well, but that's part of what I'm asking here. Yeah. I mean, because you come in, and those of us on this side, we see that, we're just like, there's a sister in the room, and so the conversation in your head flips a little bit. But sometimes you have to have very real, tough conversations with people to move the process along. How does that play out in your world? Or is that more of the grace you give yourselves, knowing that some of these conversations are going to be tough with people?
Yeah. I think the Lord gives you the grace in the moment, for sure. I also think it's strong accompaniment. So it's telling them, hey, we're going to fix this. It might be hard. But then it's not leaving them once it's fixed, or even while you're trying to fix it. It's that walking with them and helping them know that they're not alone in it. As hard as it is, as painful as it is, new life is at the end.
Well, and I think it's too, like you're saying, sometimes we're the bad guys or different things, but I think that's part of healthcare is that it's not always easy, because our patients are sick, body, mind, or soul, or something, and I think part of that is just realizing that we are weak, we are human, and just kind of owning that and coming to that in the truth of yes, it's not always going to be easy. Yes, there's going to be some no's along the way, and different things like that. But two, it's just getting to the truth of it. And I think getting to genuinely what is best, what is best for our patients, what is best for their families, our mission partners, different things like that. And being able to accept that in truth, I think is where people want to be and where they're going to be the happiest anyway. So that journey is not always the easiest, but it's definitely worth it.
Okay, one final question. Are people surprised when you start talking, and maybe outside of the OSF world, because they kind of get what you do, but when you talk to other people about the coolness of what you do on a daily basis, do they get that, the coolness of it? Or are they a bit surprised when you're trying to, you do what? Is there a little bit of that, or do they appreciate the coolness of what the two of you do on a daily basis?
I think for me, it's always interesting because the projects always change. So it's always, I do last week I met with the parents of a little 2-year-old, and their son has 4 heart defects. And so it's really complicated. And I'm showing the parents in virtual reality and the surgeons there. And we're actually going to work with another institution for surgery on this little boy, but they're just impressed because we can visualize so much better. So they're intrigued and they want to try it with us before they do anything on their own. So it's a good partnership with another institution. But it was just beautiful to be there with the family, to get to meet this cute little boy. But then to be with the parents and to realize mom broke down into tears because for the first time she saw what was wrong with her baby's heart in a very true sense. But the thing is, with that comes, and this is how we're going to work with you. This is how we're going to accompany you. This is how we're going to let God help fix your little boy through us, So there's some of that, but then there's projects that that is very much part of what we do every day. But then I've got grant work that we're doing around mental health and how do we predict the students that are struggling before they actually come to us. So how do we work on the school side when they're in middle school, when they're in high school, when they're just doing their normal thing, taking their chemistry and their language arts and whatever, and how do we predict when they're struggling and get them resources earlier? So it's not something that normally you would think that I would be involved in as an engineer, but we're working with Bradley, actually, on a phenomenal innovation for health project with them to actually bring that to fruition. And so it's just beautiful to see the gifts of like wholeness and that restoration that happens. And I mean, even too for our nurses. Sorry, I'm on my, this will be my last one.
This is great.
But one of the other projects that we're working on is we realize our nurses love them. They do so much hard work every day, right? Heavy lifting, taking care of our patients, helping them get the food that they need, changing. Just that daily care is so hard on their bodies. And so is there a device that we can develop to make it a little bit easier for them so that lifting's a little bit easier, so that if your patient is a little bit heavier than you are, that you can that device can take some of that lift. So even things and that one, I don't know if it'll ever work. We'll find out. But at least we want to try, right? So we want to try to make the lives of our mission partners, of our patients, the best that we can, because we love them all. We love you all. And we just want that to come through in our work. And that's part of the reason why we're infused throughout the system. Like, I work as an engineer. You work in performance improvement. I got asked yesterday, like, what do you do? Are you a nurse? I'm like, actually, no. So we want to be in a variety of apostolates. Yes, we have many sisters who are nurses, but we want to be throughout so that we can encounter you and to work with you and to meet you with the greatest care and love so that we can meet each patient that way too, because it has to start internally with our OSF family before it can reach our patients or our families.
I think for me, one of the things in talking with, people outside of OSF, they're always amazed at how big the projects are in PI, especially in ministry PI. So, for example, we had a diagnostic imaging project. So that was taking your ordering statuses from about 25 different ways. You can order a X-ray or MRI and mammogram and CT. So standardizing that all the way down to 5. So any provider across the ministry can order any diagnostic imaging, but there's only 5 ways that they can do it. So just the sheer size, I think, of the ministry projects seems to surprise people. Or our transportation pilot is another one, where that, in years past, there's been one ride that has been given. And so that we see the Lord's hand blessing that work. To Him be the glory, because I think in the past 8 months, that pilot has had about 2,000 ride requests. So those are patients getting their appointments. So you see reduction in cancellations and the revenue coming in because those appointments are being attended, and you see clinician productivity increasing, and they're becoming alive because my schedule's full and I have meaning and purpose. And so the sheer size of the PI projects is a shock, I think, to some.
Well, and again, it's also good to see how your faith is allowed to come through it. And for people, yes, we work at a faith-based healthcare system. We get that. But it's encouraged, it's held up, and you're allowed to flourish in it. And I think that's wonderful for people to see in the, outside of our walls world, because sometimes people question that, don't they? They're like, oh, it can't be. I'm like, yeah, it can be. And so you two put the words to it beautifully. And like I said, Sister Pieta, honestly, we intersect occasionally, and it's just always such joy. I will have a smile on my face the rest of the day just because of this conversation, because it's just such joy. So, Sister Mara, Stella, Sister Pieta Keller, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, even though I know she's not really a big fan of doing this. But I love every time we have a conversation. Appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
It's a blessing, yes.
And thank you for joining us as well. And remember, you can access any episode of the OSF Healthcare Accelerated podcast by going to osfhealthcare.org/accelerated.